Welcome to Beerfield Fantasy Football. I am your host at Hop BFF with 2 P's, Chris Hopper. As always, joined by Thury BFF with 2 F's, Dan Thury. Dan, welcome back to the show.
Wow, that was like, that felt intense.
That felt more.
Welcome back to this show. I'm here right now. Beerfield, blah blah. I'm like, Jesus.
That felt like more radio jock than anything. Like,
I mean, it was fun though.
you were apparently, yeah. You're Smash Mouth with Walking on the Sun.
Next, we have Nickelback. How do you remember?
Nickelback Photograph.
Oh God, gross. No, I'm good. I'm good. Got a round of disc golf in today. I was a bit lazy. Ran some errands. Made the fiance happy. It's all the good stuff.
Yep. Yeah, I was in meeting solid from 8:30 until 4 o'clock. So, like, not even break for lunch. I ate at my desk reviewing numbers for stuff because it's the only half an hour I got. So, super fun day for me.
Super fun.
Excited to talk some football, though. Before we do that, important stuff, some housekeeping items. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube if you're not already. Beerfield Fantasy Football. Hit the notification icon. Great participation. Great turnout Sunday morning live stream. A lot of fun there. Be sure that you hit the notification icon. Tune into that. We're going to try to do it pretty consistently between 10 and 10:15 going forward. Get in ahead of some of the bigger guys. Get some of your questions answered. We had some hits and misses this week like we do every week. I don't think we missed too terribly on anything necessarily, but there were definitely some things that we could have played out a little bit better. But overall, I don't think it was too bad this past week. I don't have anything glaring that it's like, shit, I told somebody to do that. So, I'm good.
I don't think we did. Oh, Madison, the guy who had all the RB depth.
Oh, yeah.
That one was kind of...
that game script went weird.
That one was kind of bad. Yeah, I mean, there's always a part of me in the back of my mind that, there's a chance he could be game script out, which I think we talked about. But...
yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah. Whatever.
I'm at Hop BFF on Twitter with 2 P's. He's at Thury BFF on Twitter. We have an Instagram. Doesn't get used, but it's there.
It's there. I do get notifications on messages. So.
Yeah, I do too. I have 3 Instagram accounts linked to my phone now. That's fun. Anyway, yeah, that being said, we got a show for you today. We're going to go into all the latest and greatest out of Dallas because that's a dumpster fire. So we'll spend some time breaking that down. We're going to do some temperature check on some guys, and then we'll jump into all your Week 7 action as well as news. But before we do that, we got to tell you what we're drinking on because that is part of this show, is beer.
Beer.
What's fueling Beerfield?
All right, Dan, you got some Goose Island?
I got some Goose Island. I got, it's called their Christmas IPA. There's not a lot that's talked about on the can, so I did have to do some research onto what it is. It's a malt forward, seasonal IPA. They dry hopped a bunch. They use 6 different hops, one of them being cashmere. I can't even remember where. There are a bunch of ones that I've never heard of, or at least not popularized in the beers I generally drink. So, I'm going to give this one a whirl.
Gotcha. You don't have the list or anything? It's not on the can?
Keep pulling.
I'm just curious.
Why don't you talk about yours? I'll pull it up. Won't take me too long.
All right. I have from Elysian. I think this is something new this year. I haven't seen this one before. Punkachino. So, it's a coffee pumpkin ale. Not dark beer like you get. Sounded really good for fall. I like pumpkin. I like coffee. I'm a little bit basic. So I'm going to go with the Punkachino from Elysian. And, we'll have a full rundown when we get there. But this is an ale with attitude, apparently. The short shot of Stumptown coffee with just a shake of cinnamon and nutmeg. Unfiltered, so there is sediment in this. Elysian typically does good beer, though. I tend to like most things I have from them. So I'll give you a full review later on in the show. They are out of Seattle, by the way.
All right, so hop list pulled up.
Okay.
Northern Brewer.
Okay.
Cascade. Which
Yep.
I forgot. I know that one.
I'm familiar with Northern Brewer.
Meridian, Cashmere, The last one is, I want to say Atheneum, Atheneum, Atheneum.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one. Northern Brewer, I'm pretty familiar with. That one's actually relatively common or more common, but not
then,
typically it's more used in ales and stuff though. I can't remember if you're drinking an ale, Christmas ale.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's Christmas
So
IPA.
Northern Brewer is typically used in kind of amber and darker ales, not so much used in IPAs and stuff, which is probably why you haven't run into it a whole lot because hops aren't normally a focus of.
It does make sense because it's supposed to be malt forward IPA. It's supposed to kind of pay homage to more of the old school.
Yep.
IPAs. And then if you care about the malts, 2 rows, C20, the bitter, black, and cane.
Gotcha. So cane sugar just to mop up the ABV. 2 rows pretty base. Actually here.
I mean, it is 7.5, 38 IBU.
Here's then that's probably where the cane sugar comes in because that's literally just gonna ferment. Hold on. I have this giant list of hops that I can look at, and now I've got to check myself on Northern Brewer. German bittering hop for Northern Brewer.
Oh, okay.
Dual purpose, a little bit of bitter, but it's typically full woodsy with pine and herbs. So,
well, they say that they add in the hops as they go. They say that they dry hopped with Meridian, the Atheneum, and the Cashmere.
So
Northern Brewer would be probably the first hop they put in if they use.
Well, it's dual purpose, so you'll get woods and pine and stuff like that. So if I were doing it, probably around the 15 to 20 minute mark for that one.
Okay.
Anyway, there's your little educational spot, by the way. Hops. We're talking about hop schedule. The earlier you add something into the brew, as Dan just mentioned, the more bitter you get off of that, the less aroma you get. The later you add in the brew, the more aroma you get off of that. So dual purpose hop, typically 2 types of hops, aroma and bittering hops. Higher alpha acids typically in bittering hops. Being a dual purpose just kind of means you can spread it out wherever you want it, but hop schedules are kind of an art form to getting the flavors you want out of beer. So there's your little educational moment for the show.
Love it.
All right, cool. Let's go ahead and get into some of the bigger news items here.
News.
I lost the show script somewhere.
I got it.
Of course. Of course I did. I don't know if I closed it or what. Here we go. I got it. I apparently.
Yikes.
Oh, you know what? I navigated away from it to go read about Northern Brewer hops. All right. Le'Veon Bell signed a 1-year deal with the Chiefs. Again, another reason you should listen on Sunday. We tend to cover things that happen later in the week on Sundays as well, since we're only doing 1 show a week now. But 1-year deal with the Chiefs for Le'Veon Bell. Great performance by Edwards-Helaire. So, how are you feeling about this signing, Dan? I know we talked about it in one of our league chats earlier.
Yeah, I've been kind of going back and forth. I don't think it does much for Clyde. They've already come out and said that the Bell was signed to be more of a backup, and I think that just kind of paints a picture of how they feel about their backup backs and Darrell Henderson or Darrell Williams, Darwin Thompson, and then DeAndre Washington, who hasn't seen much to field. So I think this is, Bell can kind of fit the role that Clyde plays in terms of being a pass catcher. He's elite in space, elite between the tackles. Bell is massively bigger than Clyde, so maybe he may get a few of those goal line carries. I've been joking with other people saying that the only value that Bell will take from Clyde is his goal line attempts, which if that does happen, does lower his ceiling a little bit. But this could be a massive, the range of value for Bell here is huge here. Like he could become the Kareem Hunt to Nick Chubb, like I talked about, or he could become just last year's Shady McCoy, where he ends up just being completely useless and eventually either deactivated or cut.
Yeah, and coming in when he came in, I think that You hit the nail on the head with the range of outcomes, particularly with, I think that they'll probably use him the way that they did Shady McCoy. And McCoy had some value in some games last year, but it was never consistent enough to where you felt great about it. And it was never a blow up. He'd have some games where he'd go over 50 yards and, maybe snap some receptions and stuff. I think the only difference you get out of Bell, like you mentioned, bigger back, so you do get a little bit more goal line value, but it does not kill Edwards-Helaire. And I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head with the range of outcomes is, could be Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, but it's more likely what LaShawn McCoy was, especially coming in at this point in the season.
Yeah, this just shows how much they kind of miss having Damian Williams, who was actually successful in this offense. Clyde, it's been a bit up and down, but he's been nothing more of kind of what we expected. He gets to goal line work. He just hasn't he's had back-to-back games with touchdowns called back. So he's not allergic to the end zone. He just has really terrible luck. So
yeah,
it's more or less we're going to see how this plays out within the next couple weeks.
We will. Miles Sanders, moving on. I don't have anything else on Helaire.
Yeah.
Miles Sanders fully expected to miss Thursday night's matchup with a knee injury. Mortensen reported that could be 3 to 4 weeks. The other report said not expected to be serious. Could be back after the bye. Or sorry, week 8. Sorry, I apologize. They don't have a bye. Week 8.
Week 8, yeah. So he's not playing this Thursday night, obviously.
Right. Still technically listed as questionable, but not expected to go.
I haven't seen much reports on his MRI, which he was supposed to have yesterday. I guess is a good thing because if anything serious, it would have been breaking news almost instant. This shit, I mean, you can run out and try to, grab Boston Scott and Corey Clement. They both saw, some work. This is a really bad offensive line. Sanders has needed 2 massive running plays to kind of hit his value. Otherwise, he's been pretty forgettable. He had that one bad drop that would have been a touchdown. But either way, I don't know if I'm rushing out to get Boston Scott or Corey Clement. I don't know how you feel about this.
I actually just learned something about your leveling that when I run this off of my computer speakers, I actually have another volume knob I have to worry about, by the way.
Oh, God.
Sorry, production meeting. Anyway, the way I feel about this is pretty simple. They're going to split work. And if you're in a situation where you're where you're the person that has Miles Sanders rostered, almost said owner, trying to get away from that, to where, you maybe are a person that has people on bye, you are an Austin Eckler owner, et cetera, et cetera. There's a range of outcomes to where you could be running back needy this week, and they're a fine pickup for that. As far as who you're betting on, Boston Scott, I think, is going to get the first crack at it. It'll be a hot hand approach. Corey Clement is also fine to go ahead and pick up. But I would lean Boston Scott out of those two. It is a good matchup against the Giants, so I think that you're probably okay picking both of them up and, just flex in whichever one you get, essentially, especially if you need running back help. I don't think either one's going to be a league winner. I don't think either one's going to completely blow up, but I think that they both have value this week.
Yeah, I mean, Boston Scott did significantly out-snap Corey Clement. Both running backs didn't look very good.
Yep.
Within their chances. I agree with you. I think Scott will get the first crack at it. It could turn into more of a pseudo hot hand approach. Think of Doug Peterson before Miles Sanders. That's
exactly.
how I think that's how this backup could shake out, where you're kind of hoping that you pick the right one if you even want to take that attempt.
Wendell Smallwood.
Oh, fuck no. I'm sure Josh Adams comes back or some stupid shit, or
You're right.
They'll be the one that trades for some middling running back.
Kalen Ballage gets signed.
I'd be a little more excited than for Boston Scott or Corey Clement. That's not saying much.
No, I wouldn't be.
Oh, God, gross.
Speaking of the Eagles, Deshaun Jackson's expected to return Thursday. Alshon Jeffrey is actually truly questionable this week. But Deshaun Jackson expected to be back, and I think, look, I'm all on board with fire up your Deshaun Jacksons this week in a matchup against New York. They do have solid cornerbacks, but not necessarily in coverage per se. So I'm completely on board with fire up for Deshaun Jackson's in a matchup against New York on a team that lost Zach Ertz for 3 to 4 weeks. Still completely void of pass catching options. It just lost Miles Sanders. Deshaun Jackson is kind of what they've been waiting for. They also get Lane Johnson back. So fire up Deshaun Jackson this week. If he's out there on waivers, go grab him and plug him in because I think he's in for a blow up.
I'm a little more reserved on it. But I think like with Le'Veon Bell, I think the outcome is going to be fucking huge. Jackson could see, 3 deep targets, bring one of them in for a touchdown, and then you're feeling great. Travis Fulgham, I think it's a guy I feel a little more comfortable with, at least just for this week. It's short week. Who knows how much work or like if there needs to be, any a chemistry that needs to be rebuilt from last year, because Jackson hasn't played a snap of football since week 1 of 2019. So it's been a while since he's even played a meaningful snap.
Well, he hasn't forgotten how to run a 9 route. I'm sure
he knows how to do his job. Yeah, for sure. And I think that there's a very real chance he could have a blow up game. For Thursday night, I don't even know if I want to take that chance, but
run deep. I'm taking the chance because it's not a new offense. Rust or not, run deep. I mean,
yeah,
that's.
I know.
Yeah, it's worth it for the boom opportunity for again a team that just lost 2 more weapons. So, even with Fulgham. We mentioned Zach Ertz, so I'm not going to double back on that. He hadn't really done anything anyway. McCaffrey expected to miss week 7 against the Saints. One more right out of Mike Davis. That doesn't deserve a whole lot of analysis. I thought this was weird. So Tua Tagovailoa has been named the starter for the Dolphins when they come out of their bye in week 8. The reason I say it's weird is because the team was playing well and Fitzpatrick was playing well. So, to me, the timing of it's a little weird. It's not so weird that you want to get your rookie quarterback some in-game action, but you've got a quarterback that's playing well, the team that seems to be meshing, and you're very, very much in contention in the AFC East. So to make that change now is just a little bit weird to me instead of letting him ride out the full season. So your thoughts before we get into fantasy implications, but I thought the timing of this one was weird.
So there's been 2 scenarios I saw floated around Twitter. One of them really makes sense to me is that Tua was always going to be named the starter after the bye week. And it was just something that was never discussed. It was probably more internal. And then the other one that I thought that really raised an eyebrow for me, was very curious by, it's Miami owns or has the Texans' first round pick this year. Texans are 1-5. Pretty bad. Likely to get better. They were very competitive against Tennessee. But as of right now, they're given about 10 weeks to get an understanding of Tua with a top 5 pick. Not to say that they'll replace Tua, but it's going to give them 10 games to get a feel for how they feel about him moving forward. I thought that was pretty interesting to read. I thought it kind of made sense, especially if they're given, that high of a pick with what's looking to be a very good quarterback class this year.
So if I believe one of those things, it's the first one you mentioned that this.
Yeah. I'm not saying the other one's true. I think the first one was more or less they're in contention. But I think their entire outlook has always been, if we over succeed in 2020, that's a great thing. But here's our plan. I think Fitzpatrick knew. I think that was kind of the tip to hat when Tua took over this week instead of last week. Because last week he should have took over when they were blowing out San Francisco. He took over this week.
Fitz was working the crowd for him. Obviously, Fitzpatrick, true professional, has been in this position before.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it makes sense that, makes the most sense that we're going to evaluate Tua and where he's at coming out of the bye week, the midway point of the season, and that's our plan for developing him and bringing him along. Yep. And the Dolphins, I don't think it gets said enough how impressive they've been with
this is insanely good.
With some of their, not just how well the defense is meshing, because it's been better than expected. But you look at Devontae Parker, who was left for dead, and the resurgence of him. Preston Williams coming out. He was, UDFA?
Yep.
Myles Gaskin, a 7th-round pick. Mike Gesicki obviously heralded. Adam Shaheen's had 2 touchdowns the last 2 weeks. Former first-rounder to the Bears that got cast off for nothing. Conditional 7th-rounder. So, I mean, you look at Miami's scouting department, I think that, 1, that says worlds about them, but 2, it also makes that second thing harder for me to believe. If the scouting department's been so good at finding this late-round talent and finding usable pieces on the cheap, I would find it hard-pressed to believe that they don't already know through practices and other things what they have in Tua and whether they like him enough to keep him and continue to ride him or not. I don't think this is a Josh Rosen situation.
Well, no, and I'm not saying that it was going to be. I think it gives them the unique opportunity, to make a trade and to do other things. But it does, if Tua, because it's not out of the realm of possibility that the Tua gets injured again. It's something catastrophic happens. I don't think that will happen.
I think that's grasping.
Yeah. But it does give them some sort of, okay, if for some reason this really bottoms out and we have to go back to Fitz, if they start sucking, if the Texans start sucking, that also gives them enough firepower to potentially move up and get Lawrence.
They have so many needs around that.
Oh, no, I know.
Around
I'm
that
probably
team,
grasping the
though.
straws here.
And I think that whole narrative is grasping. It makes sense, but I think that whole thing is somebody, like us, somebody like us grasping and saying it's this, and this. Like, I don't know, one, that type of discussion really goes through an NFL team's mind. I mean, positioning yourself in the draft does, but when you have a chance to be competitive and set the tone as a coach and teach your young players how to win and to set the mentality of we're in games, we're going to keep winning and we're going to fight this instead of we're tanking for something, I think that they should have enough of a read on Tua, and given what their scouting has shown, I have no reason to think that they don't, but they have enough needs in other areas of that team where they can get better that, that Texans pick is going to be a chip for them regardless, and I think that they're probably better served not spending that on quarterback. If the Texans end up at a top 2 pick, trade down, get yourself more draft capital, and go out and fill some of those holes. Get yourself some impact players on defense, and get yourself another impact wide receiver, or a bigger back to complement your smaller back with Myles Gaskin.
Yeah,
and Matt Breida.
I completely agree, but I did think it was pretty interesting when someone brought that up.
It's interesting. It's just
that they could end up with 2 top 7 picks.
Yep, just a harder narrative for me to buy than that this was the plan all the way.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Mark Ingram diagnosed with a mid to high ankle sprain, considered not to be severe. I don't want anything to do with that back.
No, I mean I did take a look at the snaps to see what happened, and it was pretty 50-50. Both running backs, and this is Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. Gus outcarried him 14-5. But Dobbins did get 4 targets, tied for second on the team. The Baltimore offense looked a bit pretty inept, though. It was pretty ugly.
Yeah, I agree. All right, speaking of pretty ugly, let's go ahead and get into some of these Week 6 headlines. Dallas. We'll start first with the game, and then we'll get into the stuff that broke earlier today. So, starting with the Dallas game, their offense got exposed. And it got exposed for the injuries that they have along the offensive line. And that Andy Dalton is not as mobile as Dak Prescott, obviously, and doesn't have the escapability, and is more statuesque. And, the Cowboys are down 2 linemen on season-ending IR, and Budda Baker wrecked him.
God, he looked
good.
He looked like the second coming of Troy Polamalu out there.
I was going to go with Tyrann Mathieu, another former Cardinal, but
yeah,
you get it.
Which also works Palomalo, just the way he plays at the line of scrimmage, and
Yeah.
just Buddha was just
all over.
otherworldly.
You know, and that's something they're gonna have to figure out how to fix. And I don't know if that's you're gonna have to keep tight ends in, but you're gonna have to keep Zeke in. You're gonna have to figure out how to stymie that. And I think they've got some learning to do there because they were just exposed, and most of it I think was offensive line play. As far as targets go, as far as everything else goes, CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper both saw 10 targets apiece. That's good volume. It's a game where they were behind the entire time. They were still even. You still had a 1A, 1B situation. CeeDee Lamb, there was a bad missed pass interference call on him that led to one of Andy Dalton's interceptions where he was basically tackled at the top of his route. So that's a little caveat there. Michael Gallup, 6 targets. Not the fall off we thought, but they also had to throw a ton. He was still clearly third in the pecking order.
So what's interesting about this is that you and I talked about it at the beginning of the game. It was Dalton Schultz and Michael Gallup. And that was before the game got out of hand. Gallup was generally what seemed to be his first or second read early on in the game. Dalton Schultz was kind of his safety valve check down guy. It wasn't Zeke. And then Gallup had that egregious drop the end the first half.
Yep.
And after that, I think he had maybe 2 more targets. And when they had to go vertical and more hurry up, it was all Cooper and Lamb. Cooper, worked underneath better than most. Lamb, played that same role. I think Gallup had maybe 1 or 2 deep shots. It was pretty telling. But I also had a feeling that just Dalton on a short-ish week, no offseason at all, and he had 6-7 days to get prepped for this. Well, he's a veteran. This is still a new offense for him.
Yep,
with a lot of working pieces and an offensive line
and a lot of new pieces with no preseason for him to get used to it either.
And 2 years ago, this offensive line top 5 in the league with guys getting hurt, guys retiring, it has become one of the worst. And it showed. Dalton threw the ball 54 times and only had 266 yards passing.
Yeah, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Also didn't help that Zeke fumbled twice. I think that really took him out of, they had to go out of their game plan for that one because Zeke, the way he started off, fumbling twice, putting him at a deficit, that set the tone for the game. It was just ugly.
Yeah,
and
he had 11 targets. He led the team at targets, though.
And uncharacteristic.
Yeah, so. I guess not for this year. He led the league in fumbles lost coming into this year. They're not even into the first year. Through the first year, they're probably already regretting this contract. Like, it was bad to begin with, and I felt like it's like after this game, after like when Dak went down, the whole offense, whole team tanked.
Yeah, and I don't think it was lack of effort on anything. It was just mental mistakes for the most part. And, I think that it does improve. I think that they do figure it out, but, they're going to have to do a lot better, especially up front than what they did against Arizona. Now, good news is they get Washington, and then it doesn't really get easier after that. They actually got Washington, Philly, Pittsburgh next 3 games. So
I don't think it gets easier at all. I mean, game script wise looks more neutral for Washington and Philly.
Pittsburgh,
and they're 2 losses away from just blowing this thing up somehow.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's going to be rough. Defense is still a liability. They did get Leighton Vander Esch back, but yeah,
you want to just shut them down. There's no need to even try to rush them back.
Vikings, Bengals, Giants are the only 3 games that I see on the schedule right now that are probably plus game script.
God, if only Dak was healthy for the Vikings game.
Yeah, so keep an eye on it. Washington, again, I would just go ahead and keep the status quo there as far as what you were doing this week. So Zeke, Lamb, Cooper, because that should be a game where I think they get to execute their offense the way that they want to, but we'll have to watch beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, Zeke, Cooper, Lamb accounted for over half of Dolphins' attempts here. So,
yep.
Like, you can still trust your top 3 I think we're right. It just kind of took a little bit to get there.
Yeah. Now, where the wheels are really coming off of this, though, is that it came out earlier today that players were openly criticizing the coaching staff, and it's not unlike things we heard coming out of Green Bay from Aaron Rodgers, too. But unprepared, don't teach, no ability to adjust on the fly, just aren't good at their jobs, are some of the quotes that came out. And the ability to adjust was one of Rodgers' gripes with Mike McCarthy. It was really the big one that McCarthy wouldn't adjust his play calling, so Rodgers would adjust it at the line and say, essentially, screw you.
Yeah.
And, there's no word on which coaches this was about specifically, if it was the whole staff. I wouldn't think that, Kellen Clemens, who was so heralded last year, suddenly fell into something like that. Or more, sorry, not Kellen Clemens. You get it.
Yeah, I get it.
I wouldn't think that he fell that far. Could have been the defensive coaching staff, who has just been absolutely atrocious. Offense has generally been clicking, so, I don't know if that was a knock on that. If I had to guess, probably more defensive centered, given the results on the field, but who knows? And this is the type of thing that when it comes out, if that coaching staff has already lost the locker room, you are going to see some more woeful performances out of Dallas.
Yeah, it might, which is funny because I also saw on Twitter that Mike McCarthy said he felt like the team was the most prepared so far coming into this Sunday night game.
Well, they didn't look like it.
Couldn't have been far from the truth,
right,
in terms of the product that this showed us. But I do agree. If he lost the locker room, which we won't know,
we'll know
the
in a couple
players
weeks.
just won't come out and say, but we'll see it by the nonverbal cues, the body language on and off the field. Basically AJ Green 2 weeks ago when the Bengals were getting blown out by Baltimore, and we got to see them giving up on routes.
Or watch a Jets game.
Or watch the Jets game.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that guys like Lamb and Gallup and Cooper are going to give up on their plays, but you could start seeing some restlessness on the sideline, and I wouldn't be surprised if at some point Dalton, if he continues to play poorly, which I think he'll play a little bit better throughout the weeks, if he doesn't get benched, to see what else they have, because they're still at top of the division right now. At 2-4, coming off of what could have been the worst performance of a team in the league this season, is still at top of the division.
I don't know. Green Bay gave him a run.
True.
So
very true. But fuck, man, the NFC East is
bad.
Bad.
All right, on to some maybe happier things. So, we're doing some temperature checks, is what I'm calling this, and it's not just because if you work on site anywhere, you have to do temperature checks all the time now. But some guys that came up on the Sunday morning live stream that we were maybe more on the fence about, maybe more tepid about. Gonna see if our opinion changed on them any after this week. And, if you can think of somebody off the top of your head, not listed here, feel free to throw them in at the end. I want to start with Chase Claypool, though. A lot of back and forth this week for us on Chase Claypool. There was some debate on, where exactly that point was. I said the point was Chase Claypool over Robbie Anderson was at the point where I was comfortable with Chase Claypool. That ended up being very, very right. As Claypool finished as the wide receiver 10 and Robbie Anderson was the wide receiver 31. We had him below Justin Jefferson, I think, which ended up being right. Justin Jefferson was the wide receiver 1 this week. Ahead of behind Cooper Kupp, which was almost right if it wasn't for a bad shoulder throw and a bad drop.
Yeah.
So, where Deontay Johnson's coming back this week. So, did a second really good performance change your opinion on Chase Claypool?
I mean,
where's your temperature at?
I'm up there. And we talked about this. I had to kind of go against him a little bit just because I liked other players over him. And then I finally got to talk some, be all happy about him. I forgot who the player was that they asked to compare to. But
wasn't
either way.
What might have been T. Higgins, maybe?
Maybe? Maybe.
Or was it Brandon Cooks? Might have been Brandon Cooks.
It was Brandon. I think it was
Brandon Cooks, which also ended up being right. We'll talk about Cooks in a minute.
Yeah. But it's up there. I mean, I'm going it's hard to go through his snaps to see what changed. But in a game that was more game script positive in terms of the running game, Chase saw he had 6 touches. They manufactured ways to get him the football. He's going to be their deep threat. This is turning into a pseudo DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett situation, but it's slightly different. That's kind of the mold that they're building here with Claypool and Juju. It'll be interesting to see who gets the boot when Deontay comes back. Obviously, we're going to see James Washington, which should be the case. But as for Claypool, you hope to see one of those boom target games. You still got targeted by Washington. You want to see that get better, and I want to see what this looks like in a game where they have to throw a bit more and not have control of the game so much.
Yeah,
but he's on fire for me.
4 targets out of just 22 passes for Ben Roethlisberger. Deontay coming back, the volume's the only concern. It's not efficiency. And I think that they're still going to find a way to manufacture touches for Chase Claypool because he's a game breaker. He is a, we'll call it not quite Tyreek Hill, maybe Deshaun Jackson 5 years ago type of game breaker. And I think with that, you're going to see some bust performances. Those are coming. But is the boom enough to keep him in your lineup, especially in, positive game scripts or positive matchups? And I think it absolutely is. I think you would have to have a negative game script and a trash matchup for that to be a thing. And by that I mean you'd have to end up in a game that you're projecting to just be a defensive slobber knocker for Chase Claypool to be a bench for me at this point. So my temperature on him is a little bit up. I wouldn't say that I've broken the thermometer yet, but I'm definitely up on Chase Claypool.
I'm interested to see what it looks like if he gets top coverage. Obviously, shading coverage to Juju as he's operating in the slot, it's not going to happen. And I got to think that he's eventually going to see more of the physical shadow corners moving forward if said team that he plays against has one. It does speak for him. He didn't lead all receivers snaps. He had 8 more than Juju and 9 more than James Washington. And they, like I said, they're trying to find ways to get him the football, whether it be through handoffs or through deep attempts. So better days. I think better days could be ahead. Yeah. Obviously not like last week where he had 4 touchdowns, but I think we could start to see that transition emerge from potentially Claypool being what you wanted Deontay Johnson to be.
Yep. You had a game this week against the Titans that we'll preview later that could be relatively high scoring given what we've seen lately. Then you get the Ravens, which could be more of that type of game that I'm talking about, where you think about benching him because that stays a little bit lower, more defensive, especially an in-division matchup like that. And then they go get the Cowboys, that's plus game script, and the Bengals, which is a plus matchup. So not a whole lot of reason to bench Chase Claypool here coming up.
Unless you're afraid of, game script going against them. And when you get plus matchups against bad defenses, as we saw against Cleveland, it doesn't take much for them to want to just run the football.
No, but you got to have real lethargic offenses. And the thing with that is Dallas is the only one of those I look at and say, all right, this could be a lethargic offense. I don't see that happening with the Titans. The Bengals offense has gotten better every week. So I really look at that Dallas game, and if they can't turn it around, think, okay, this could be lethargic. The Ravens game is the only one I think could go negative game script for him.
Yeah. And speaking of the Bengals.
Yeah, speaking of the Bengals, T. Higgins. So we were a little down on T. Higgins this week because of the way we expected that game to go. Expected to be a little bit lower scoring, and it was. But he still came out, 8 targets, 6 receptions, 125 yards, 7 or more targets the last 4 weeks, 50 or more yards the last 3 weeks. A.J. Green had a good game, and it was not T. Higgins that suffered because of it.
Fuck A.J. Green. Not kidding. I still think we are seeing the transition from Green being the elite outside threat moving on to Higgins. Higgins got going early. I think when the game came down to where the Colts they mounted their comeback, and we got to see in those final few drives for Cincinnati to try to hold on, then eventually lose. That's when Green got it going. Higgins, though, 6 catches, 125 yards. All he needed was a touchdown. And you're looking at a wide receiver one day, really simply. So I think every week you move forward with him. I don't think you could just say, no, I don't, I'm a bit nervous with this. He was number one in snaps with them this week. And if they do get behind, which they probably will, this defense isn't very good. It's going to be the Higgins show. This is what the Bengals envisioned when they drafted Higgins with the first pick.
Yeah, he's that wide receiver too with upside that we quintessentially talk about, to where I don't really see, unless you're stacked at wide receiver, a good reason to sit him. You could very well have 3 better options than T. Higgins that you don't want to start him over.
Yeah.
But in most scenarios, he's somebody you plug in, and you may not get a big blow up week from him, but you're confident he's not going to bust you, that he's going to perform above average, and I think that's all you can ask for. So, very positive on him. Actually, didn't really put anybody in here that had a negative outlook. Now that I think about it. Moving on, Ronald Jones, 3 straight weeks now over 100 yards, coming in with a 2-touchdown performance. And the more he does this, the less I'm worried about Leonard Fournette coming back.
Yeah, I'll admit I was wrong.
I was also wrong. I was very wrong.
Yeah, and while I'm still a bit tepid on him in Dynasty, I think for 2020, he's firmly locked himself into RB1, RB2 every week. He'll get the touches. I think he can probably even withstand a couple of drops and a missed pass protect on Brady. I don't even know if Fournette. I wouldn't even be shocked if Fournette gets flat out cut. I don't think he will, just given how bad the backups have looked, and Keyshawn Vaughn and Shady McCoy.
Right.
But it's just a tip of the cap note to Jones.
Yeah, because he's not in a not talented backfield, and we always say cream rises to the top, and he's risen to the top on this one.
Yeah, and he's with a team that wants it, that has playoff aspirations, and that feel like that they're good enough, to go to the Super Bowl potentially, and with how they played against another Super Bowl contender in Green Bay, that speaks a lot of volumes, especially after coming off of a pretty rough performance as a team against Chicago. Jones, any running back that can take a stranglehold of the backfield with Brady, always has league-winning upside, always has touchdown upside, because somehow, some way, Brady will get their running back into a position to get potentially 3 or 4 touchdowns on any given.
Yep, and he's had 3 touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. So, I'm up on Arnold Jones. DeAndre Swift, this one you have a little bit less of a trend, but he outtouched Adrian Peterson 17-16. Kerryon Johnson nowhere to be found and hasn't been for a couple weeks. Way more efficient, though. 116 yards, broke a big run, 2 touchdowns on the ground for DeAndre Swift, and that game really shifted to him more towards the second half. This is a breakout for DeAndre Swift, where you plug him in as a flex going forward.
So when I did my live stream with our buddy Matt McCoy, we also had to hit on this as we went through the games. And while Swift touched Peterson still out-carried him, and the snaps were virtually equal in a game where they completely controlled it. If I thought this was going to be Swift's breakout game, which it is, but this is going to be Swift's stepping stone to something bigger, he should have had more of everything. Snaps and carries, given that they were in control of this game from the get-go. It's also Matt Patricia. It's also this Lions coaching staff, and this enamorment with wanting to play Peterson as the starter. Next week, I want to see how they use him coming off of this game. This is his most touched game, his most snap usage in this game. I want to see how it looks next game for me to get really excited for. You can trade for him, but good luck, because it could bottom out again. Like, we keep seeing this from teams where they get too cute. It's easy to see that Swift is the best player, or it's the best running back in this backfield by a country mile, and yet they still gave Peterson meaningful snaps in a blowout game.
And again, I think part of that comes from being ahead, but I think the jump and the trend in that is more so what I want to look at towards it being a stepping stone to better things. And the efficiency difference tells me that
Oh God, yeah.
I think he's going to continue to carve out a role. So, it ups my temperature on DeAndre Swift. It doesn't put him in the must start category for me yet. It's still going to be pretty matchup dependent. I do like it next week against Atlanta.
Oh yeah. Especially with him as a third down back too.
Yep. Next 3 weeks actually, Atlanta, Indy could be a little iffy, and then we'll see when it comes to Minnesota. But
so there is one thing to look out for. We are 2 weeks away from the trade deadline. Lions have 3 viable running backs. I'll still put Kerryon out there because I'm sure teams still believe in them.
yeah,
There's some teams out there that just lost their running back that are in division contention. Cough, cough, Philly. That could make a move for a Johnson or Peterson. We talked about this potentially being like a Nick Chubb situation. I know we mentioned it with J.K. Dobbins, but Swift is in the same boat where he's kind of entrenched between 2 veterans, and he looks to be the absolute best. And it took a trade in Carlos Hyde for Chubb to be unleashed. We could see a trade in potentially Peterson that could unlock Swift, and then you get your RB1 moving forward, league-winning running back that we all drafted, probably a little bit too high.
Kerryon Johnson would be an interesting fit in Philly too. Just saying,
he would be better. Both Kerryon would be a great fit.
Yep.
He's a good enough pass catcher,
right.
And we know that he could probably carry a load for a week or two before he gets hurt.
Fair. Brandon Cooks. Moving on, not to.
No, I'm sorry. No,
but we're good. Brandon Cooks, back-to-back solid weeks for him over the last 2 weeks. 21 targets, 17 receptions, 229 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's definitely emerged as a 2. Hasn't hurt Will Fuller any. Texans, I think at this point we know are going to have to be high-volume passing. They seem to have figured it out under Romeo Crennel over the last couple weeks. Deshaun Watson, 2 back-to-back very good weeks. Go up against Green Bay this upcoming week. Is Brandon Cooks becoming what we expected Brandon Cooks to be? It just was a little bit slow getting off the line.
I think the coaching transition has completely changed everything for the Texans. The players look more, the whole team look better, including the defense at times. So yeah, I think this is a good step forward with everyone healthy. And there's also reports that all receivers are on the market for trade, which means things could get better if they trade, let's say, potentially Fuller, or if they trade,
Kenny Stills. Does Kenny Stills have trade value?
Or Kenny Stills? I'm sure a team would throw a 7th round pick his way, maybe. That's kind of where I would lean with that. But I think as of right now, in plus matchups where we expect Houston to throw the football a lot, yeah, I think you could be confident in throwing, Cooks in your flex spot.
Yeah, I think so too. And really, as you come through bye weeks, just as a plug-in, he himself is on bye, not this upcoming week, but the following week, and then comes back with a plus matchup against Jacksonville. So, something to keep an eye on. If he's dropped early in the season and he's out there on waivers, go get him back.
Great.
Darrell Henderson. So, led the Rams in rushing again, 14 times, 88 yards, no sign of Cam Akers.
Nope. I mean, John McVay continues to frustrate fantasy owners all alike, regardless if you like Akers or not, Henderson or not. Malcolm Brown, I guess people have fans of his out there. We have to operate with the assumption that Darrell Henderson's the lead back, and as long as the Rams aren't in playoff contention, I think they're going to roll with their best guy. Yeah. I do think that there is a chance in the back of, there is a potential chance where if Henderson does go through a struggling stretch, Akers could still work away. But you can say that you can say that about most backfields.
And at this point, he's been active and hasn't seen the field in 2 weeks.
Exactly.
So, how much of a threat is Cam Akers? Malcolm Brown is still seeing work above him. Is he truly not healthy? How bad was the rib injury? Something you got to keep an eye on. Rams get the Bears this week. That is a better matchup for the running game than it has been in years past. With Particularly they opt out of Eddie Goldman. So they've been very bend not break. There will be yardage there to be had. I think what you're gonna get out of Darrell Henderson, though, not a ton of touchdown upside, but a lot of these 14 for 88 type of performances that are gonna put him in flex value most weeks. Doesn't change my temperature on him because that's already where I had him rated.
Yeah.
Was kind of in that flex consideration most weeks with, a bit of upside. But until you have a big blow up week from him, I don't think that it's really going to move the needle for me a whole lot. I think we know what he is. He's going to get work, but it's not going to be in the 25 to 30 touch range.
I agree.
Anybody else we need to throw out here that we didn't talk about that you can think of?
Off the top of my head, no, I don't think so.
I'm doing a quick look here, but I don't really think that there is either. No, I think we're good there. All right, let's go ahead and hit some week 7 stuff, shall we? I have a drop for this. I just don't really have it added. So,
okay.
For some reason, I'm going to go grab that real quick. Nope. There it is.
Weekly preview.
I also definitely did not have things up. What? Bear with me.
Bear with you.
Yep, Dallas kind of fucked me a little bit last night. So did the Chiefs. By the way, real quick, things that I learned yesterday as I go ahead and get into FanDuel here, so we can do this preview. Check the freaking weather before you bet things.
Yes, you should. Yeah, that should be. It may seem obvious, but I think a lot of people forget to do is make sure you check wind and just overall playing conditions if you're betting the over-under.
Yeah, and what I didn't check last night was the weather for Buffalo, Kansas City. So I threw the over and then saw it was raining and wasn't going to stop and immediately started cussing because I knew that was not going to hit.
I think a lot of people love the over, and for that one, I wanted to wait to see how the game started, and then it felt apparent to me that it was going to be likely under, and I wanted to get the under in before it dropped below 50, and I got it in, I think, at 49.5, so a little lower than I would have liked. Also learned live betting could be very dangerous because they truly fix the spreads and the over-unders pretty quickly. Looking Dallas. At you, Ken and Drake.
Looking at you, Dallas.
I'm still not over that.
Yeah.
That was brutal.
All right, Giants, Eagles. Eagles favored by 4.5 in this one. Negative 230 on the money line to open up. Over under 43.5 here. If I'm looking at this from a betting perspective, obviously, weather permitting, Eagles on the.
I like the spread, and I actually like the over/under. I do like the over/under. I think
to go. You like it over?
I do like it over. I actually bet the over in the Giants Washington game, and it wasn't for fucking Ron Rivera against stupid. I think it would have gone over too. That was only.
I bet the Washington money line, and if Kyle Allen had spreaded for the fucking pylon, I probably would have got it.
That one, and just kick the extra point and give your team a. I don't think Jackson changes that too much if he's more their underneath guy.
Well, especially with Ertz.
So I think
so.
Yeah, and then Ertz is gone. Got her likely not coming back till after this week. So Fulgham, Jackson, Wentz. Wentz right now is a top 12 quarterback, despite all the ups and downs he's faced.
And he's getting his line back too, so he's getting help. He's a fine stream this week. I like the Eagles spread here. Now, the more we talk about it, hit 4.5.
Yeah, I like I said, I like the 4.5 Eagles with minus 110, which makes sense. And then I like the over.
Over.
I think this could be a smallest shootout in terms of I think they both can easily score 24 points.
I think so too. Bills Jets. Bills favored by 13.5. Negative 650 odds on this one. Over under is 45. I can see the Bills going up in this one and cruising personally.
So back in week 2, I think it went over when the Jets got some garbage time.
A lot of that's also going to depend on if Sam Darnold's back.
True.
And not Joe Flacco, because they have looked atrocious with Joe Flacco. So that's something to monitor throughout the week. I don't like double-digit spreads, even if it is the Jets.
Especially on the road. The Jets haven't covered. The Jets are 0-6 against the spread.
Right.
They haven't even been able to cover double-digit spreads against them. So I say bet Buffalo with confidence. Maybe even up the spread a little bit if you want to play the alternative spread line for more money.
Yeah. As far as
don't do that. That's probably dumb.
Yeah, probably. As far as fantasy options go in this game, for the Bills, Devin Singletary, Zach Moss saw like one drive, so you're confidently flexing in Devin Singletary. Stephon Diggs is playable. I don't know that I would worry about John Brown this week. I think I'd leave him on my bench. Just because I don't know that they're going to need a secondary receiving option to do much here. Josh Allen, you're obviously starting, but temper expectations. It's a very positive game script for Buffalo. Doesn't work out well. If you're the Neil Perriman came in and saw 8 targets, and you've got Jamison Crowder. Perriman probably sees Tre'Davious White, so I'm staying away from that. Don't go chasing 8 targets and 65 yards. Jamison Crowder operating out of the slot. Really the only thing I want to even consider looking at there. It's an ugly game.
Yeah, there's 4 players you should play from this game. Singletary, Allen, Diggs, Crowder.
Yep, that's it.
And Bill's defense, obviously.
Defense.
If you play with the defense. That's it. That's it.
Speaking of defenses and kickers, by the way, another word of advice from me. If you look at schedules in the morning, like, damn, I need a kicker. Oh, look, there's Brandon McManus. I think that, Denver's probably going to kick a lot of field goals in this one, and then that plays out. Make sure he's not on your fucking bench. Because apparently I picked him up and didn't put him in my lineup. Yep. 24 points from my kicker.
Happens when you have a lot of leagues.
24 points from my kicker sitting on my bench. I went and picked up Samuel Sloman last minute just so I didn't take a 0 there. I got lucky and had a spot because I threw Gordon on IR. So I had 2 kickers there for a little bit.
Here you go.
All right, Panthers Saints. Saints favored by 7.5 here. I actually like the Panthers money line at over a touchdown. Saints offense hasn't been great.
I mean,
Panthers.
It depends if Michael Thomas is back.
Sorry, Panthers spread. I like the Panthers spread at plus 7.5.
I mean, this could be one of those games where Panthers money line might actually pay off too. You don't need to put a lot of money onto it. I also do like Panthers spread. If Michael Thomas is back, that could change things a little bit.
Yeah, but they haven't been explosive on offense. The Saints haven't. So it's gonna be
well,
closer.
I know, but I think that also ties into not having Michael Thomas in. Brees has no trust in anybody outside of Kamara and maybe some Emmanuel Sanders.
Slant boy
coming back could help, but I like the points at 51 with the over there.
I do like
it's
the
in the
over.
Dome, and if the Panthers come out with their speedsters flying on turf, score some points, could be in for a firework day.
Yep. Speaking of, you're okay with the Teddy Bridgewater stream. Mike Davis, you're starting one more time. Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore should be full go.
Yeah, like even with Marshawn Lattimore, which I would assume would get Robbie Anderson operating primarily on the outside.
Yeah. It hasn't been so locked down.
He hasn't been.
Yep.
You're very right.
And he doesn't have the same type of over-the-top help that Fuller does with Eddie Jackson. So,
yeah. I like, as you said, I like all the main options here,
Yep.
including Teddy.
Yep. As for the Saints, you don't get really too cute here. Michael Thomas is back. That puts a little bit of a damper on Emmanuel Sanders. Bye week, so if you have to start him, I understand. He'll probably still have an okay floor. But Michael Thomas is back. You're going Thomas, Kamara, Brees.
Yeah, I mean, I would maybe even still play
Sanders.
Maybe even play Sanders. I think Traquan's got some really deep league value. So even if Thomas comes back, there's no guarantee that he it won't be like a Julio situation or a Mike Evans situation where if they're injured, they're decoys. But it just helps open up the offense a bit more, which means bigger plays for guys like Traquan Smith who can of a vertical guy, or Sanders when you have Thomas operating. As your intermediate guy.
I think this is more game script neutral. I don't necessarily see it going shootout, even though I see the over potentially hitting. I think that if the over does hit, you're getting big games out of Kamara and Mike Davis.
Yeah, and then probably at least two of the 3 or 4 guys we talked about.
Right.
Combining both teams are having massive days, if not even more than 2.
Yep. Browns Bengals. 3.5-point favorites for Cleveland. Bengals plus 140 on the money line. Over under in this game is 50.
Cleveland has looked horrible against playoff caliber teams
and good against bad teams.
And look, besides the Colts, they look good against the Colts, and it has looked great otherwise. Cincinnati, you can completely be ran on. Only reason it didn't happen last on Sunday because the Colts got down so quickly. This is the perfect game to go back to protecting Baker and his ego. Not his ego, but his overall psyche. This could be a huge Kareem Hunt and Dearness Johnson game. I think Cleveland smashes them. I'll take the minus 3.5 at
plus 104
plus odds.
Yeah. No.
I'm gonna make that bet right now while we're talking though.
Yeah, no, because that probably isn't gonna stay that way.
I'm surprised it's that. I'm surprised it's at plus odds at 3.5.
I am too.
That's nuts.
Yep, I am too. So plus odds for Cleveland, plus 140 for the Bengals. Over under in this game 50, and I think that I like the over. Honestly, I really do. These are teams with a lot of good skill players, and neither defense is locked down.
I think we're seeing a little more cohesion or cohesion, from the Bengals in terms of the offense and being productive and efficient. Burrow, wasn't elite against the Colts, but he was able to compose himself and give himself a chance and make a run at the end. I'm with you. Cleveland with the spread at plus odds, and then take the over at 50.
Yeah, no, I think you're taking the over. As far as fantasy goes, are you going full send with everybody here? I mean, obviously Burrow is in Baker probably still in stream category, but is there anybody you're looking at and saying, out of Mixon, Hunt, Beckham, Landry, Higgins, that even AJ Green after his most recent breakout that you're saying, and maybe steer clear of them because, worst case, I'm seeing neutral game script, and I don't think there's anybody here that I want to steer clear of. I don't think there's anybody cute that you throw out there because of all the big name cachet that's between these two teams. But I don't know that I want to steer clear of anybody in this game either.
Baker. I have firmly put Baker in timeouts in his best of best games against Dallas, and I get it that they were in running game script for majority of that game. Cleveland wants to run the football, and they're fine letting Baker do some things. I'm not taking the risk. I'm flying streaming Burrow. I'm not playing Baker.
Sure.
I have to in the league, but I'm not.
Skill position guys, though, pretty straight up there. Yeah.
No, I'm there.
Yep. Okay.
Fuck, maybe even Rashad Higgins at this point if he keeps getting touchdowns.
Yeah. Cowboys and the Washington football team. Cowboys come in as 1-point underdogs.
Washington is favored.
Yeah, Washington is favored by a point.
Yeah.
Even odds.
Wow.
Um,
I'm staying away from this game. I don't want to bet this game.
Over under is 46. If anything, I would probably take the Cowboys money line.
If I'm taking anything, I'm taking the under.
Just because I don't think Washington's going to be able to wreck them necessarily in the same way that Arizona did. I think that they will adjust to that. I'm not necessarily. Andy Dalton can go on timeout. As far as target volume and everything, though, that we saw out of Amari Cooper, that we saw out of CeeDee Lamb, I'm not saying sit anybody. Again, maybe Michael Gallup, just because of the way things trended for him. We'll see when we get to Sunday how I feel about a lot of those comparisons. But Michael Gallup is probably the one thing I'm pulling off of there for Dallas. Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, betting wise, I'll take the under. As for fantasy guys, Gibson, McLaurin, Zeke, Lamb,
Cooper,
and Cooper. I'm not playing Gallup. I don't. Washington has a good pass rush. This is this is like San Francisco. A lot of these guys are first round picks. A lot of these guys are this is an underrated pass rush against a bad offensive line right now.
That's part of the reason why I'm not on Dalton Schultz, is I think they're going to have to keep him in.
I'm not on Schultz, so I'm not on Gallup. I think if anything, it's you play your studs and then you just hope that this game scores more than I think it will.
Yeah. We'll see if Dallas can adjust. Lions, Falcons. Falcons are favored by 2 in this one. And I am I'm on board with that. 2-point favorites for Atlanta at home. Better odds than the money line. Over-under is 56.5. That's a high over-under.
Tied for the second highest. There's another game that's at 56. Forgot to look. I meant to look to see what the trends of over-unders hit last week was. Yeah,
I'm looking at the bottom of this 56.5, 56, 51.5, 56.5.
Yeah, it's
52.5.
I want to say I feel comfortable with the over here.
I don't.
And Detroit just great matchup last week. They got up early.
They played down to their competition because they got up early and then they just ran the football. They didn't try to blow them out, which is kind of Patricia's MO.
I mean, Atlanta is at home. Back of the dome, obviously coming off of their first win after their coaching change. Detroit has enough firepower to play shootout with Stafford. I think this could be the game. I think this is I take Atlanta, and maybe if you want to create a 3-4-5 team parlay with teases, I would tease down the over under and just take the over at 50.5. Or 50, depending on what site you use.
Sure. Yeah, no, I'm 100% saying Falcons on the spread here is 2-point favorites. And then I'm probably on the under at 56.5 because that's so freaking high. Anyway, and because Detroit does have a tendency to not score a lot when you think they will. As far as fantasy goes, though, look, Marvin Jones hasn't done a lot this year. It could be enticing to play him. I would just say don't.
It was enticing last week, and he didn't do shit. So
it's been enticing 3 or 4 times this week as a Marvin Jones roster person, and he doesn't do shit. So
just drop him.
Yeah, it's Kenny Golladay, T.J. Hawkinson saved his day with a touchdown. DeAndre Swift, Adrian Peterson splitting work. They both have flex value. As far as the Falcons go, it's your normal cast of characters with Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, Matt Ryan, and Todd Gurley.
Yeah, if you want to get cute with
Russell Gage,
I wouldn't go with Gage.
I wouldn't either.
Hayden Hurst, maybe. It depends. It's all hinges on Detroit keeping up with scoring and Detroit not getting up early. That's the biggest thing. If Detroit wants to get up, if Detroit gets up early, we saw what we saw last week. That defense, it can step up when needed. It's Atlanta's offense is so good with so much weapons. Like, there's just no way that you want to, like, this should be a shootout. This screams shootout on paper. Vegas thinks so. So yeah, I'm good with even playing some of the ancillary pieces here. Your Gages, your Hurst, and yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know that I'm going to get that cute with it. Again, Detroit has a tendency to underwhelm as far as their ability to keep up in positive game scripts. Matt Stafford, by the way, is an okay stream, though. That being said,
I wish which is funny. I want it to be. He's underwhelmed in all of his plus matchups too.
he has.
He's. I think his prop line, he's gotten under in all but one game. Like, they can't even get it right, and it's been odd to see. This past, which goes to your narrative that Detroit kind of underwhelms in what should be, a massive game.
Yep. Packers Texans. So this is one where Aaron Rodgers typically not 2 bad games in a row. Packers favored by 3.5 in this one. Over under is 56. Packers money line -188. If anything jumps out at me there, it's the Packers money line.
Houston elite. Houston's pass rush is elite. We saw what Tampa Bay did against Green Bay with that elite pass rush. The secondary isn't nearly as good as Tampa Bay's, though, to take advantage of said pass rush. I do agree that you can't assume that Rodgers is going to have 2 bad games in a row. Houston's been a juicy matchup for all positions, including running backs, receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks, you name it. They've done well against it, or they've done bad against it. So I'm firing up Rodgers with confidence. Obviously Jones, obviously Adams.
Yeah,
that's probably it.
Houston maybe tied with Washington for 9th in the league in sacks. 31 QB hits puts them middle of the pack, 17th. So, I don't know about elite. They're above average, but I don't know about elite as far as 22 tackles for loss. Just went to stats because I know that the MO of Houston previously is that they have a elite pass rush, but something in me didn't feel it was necessarily true this year. And while the sack numbers are top 10, pressures, hits, things like that are not. So I do think that watch the status of David Bakhtiari. Packers did have a couple of line injuries, so watch David Bakhtiari's status throughout the week. That's going to make a big difference on how you feel about Green Bay. Right now on the surface, Green Bay money line is where I like it. I won't bet that because fuck the Packers. But I hated that
me last week.
Hated that I liked the McCringleberry celebration from Rodgers.
I loved it more because it
got called back.
Well, that and it was the downfall of Rodgers.
Yep.
Shortly after that.
Yep. Far as fantasy pieces in this game, for the Packers, I don't know that you can rely with Allen Lazard out on a secondary wide receiver between Valdez-Scantling and St. Brown right now. Valdez-Scantling, if you're taking a shot on that, I would stick to Tanyan, Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, and Aaron Rodgers in this game, though. Look, probably will be a shootout. Actually, I'm going to recant that. Go ahead and play Valdez-Scantling because I do think this is a shootout.
Yeah, I think this is one of my. I think this is going to be the highest scoring game of the week.
I think so too,
especially with how good this Texans offense has looked since Mr. Bob has been let go.
Yep, and speaking of the Texans offense, their offense has been good, and the Packers defense has not necessarily been great. So Deshaun Watson with confidence. You're good with Brandon Cooks and Will Fuller both this week. David Johnson has running back 2 value, I guess. It's another game that's relatively chalk, but I do expect this to be high scoring. So your pieces, go ahead and start them.
You can even get cute with Darren Fells.
You could get cute with Darren Fells again if you wanted to. You got a touchdown.
I mean, Gronk went off. I mean, Gronk did some work against this.
He did.
This Green Bay defense last week. Why not the sneaky Darren Fells play in back-to-back weeks?
Sure. Another game that could be surprisingly high scoring, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Tennessee Titans in this one. So over under on this one's 51.5. Steelers favored by 2.5.
On the road.
Yeah, on the road.
I like Tennessee money line.
I
actually like the under here. I think both teams are going to try to I won't say slow it down per se, but both teams' strength is playing defense and running the football. Even with Pittsburgh looking good throwing the ball, it's same with Tennessee. We know what both these teams want to do. This could be a gross and close game where it's fun to watch if you like football, and it may not be as fun to watch for fantasy. That's how I feel about this game.
Yeah, and I'm looking something up. Sorry, I went sideways real quick. Where the hell is Pittsburgh? Yeah, Pittsburgh 30th in the league in points allowed and giving up fantasy points to running backs as well, and that's how Tennessee's made their points in their hay is off of Derrick Henry. So
the most complete team in football.
They also have two, really good secondary. Corey Davis is back. They're going to take away one of those two wide receivers. I don't know if A.J. Brown or Corey Davis is going to draw top coverage. But
Brown will get Hayden for sure.
Yeah.
There's no way that like maybe not on every single play, but for the majority of the game, Brown's going to be on Hayden. We need to see what news comes of Jonnu Smith. So maybe I may switch off of Pittsburgh.
Minka Fitzpatrick too. So
yeah, I may switch off of
Tennessee money line. Yeah, I like the under in this one a lot. I think because I do think this is going to be more grind out. I like Pittsburgh money line. I like more. I think I just talked myself out of it, or even the Pittsburgh spread. You're not sitting Derrick Henry, obviously, but don't expect 200 yards out of him. I would steer clear of A.J. Brown this week.
I mean, I'm still playing Brown. Like with Henry, you're just lowering expectations.
Yeah, I'm
Brown back and healthy, potentially no Davis or Jonnu Smith. Like, Daniel has to throw the ball to somebody.
So Davis was activated today. So Davis will play.
I'm still play. I would still play Brown. I just won't expect a big.
Jonnu Smith, I wouldn't play anyway. I don't want to play tight ends when you have a safety that is that good.
Yeah.
On both fronts, I absolutely do not want to do that. And quite honestly, Pittsburgh also 27th in the league in points allowed to tight ends, just over 5. So
I think the next question is who are you most comfortable with playing on Pittsburgh? We talked a lot about Tennessee, but what about Pittsburgh? Because it's not like Tennessee is a slouch of a defense. No, they can give up points. Obviously, Houston and Minnesota, but
they're 6th in the league as far as points allowed to wide receivers. They're points allowed to running backs. They're top half. They're 10th. So, defense for Tennessee is not as good as it was last year. Probably James Conner is my most comfortable start. If you're asking me about wide receivers, I'll still take the boom and Chase Claypool because I think they're going to try to manufacture touches for him. Deontay Johnson, I think, is coming back into a little bit of an uncertain role. I do agree with you that they try to play defense and slow this one down, which is why I'm heavy on James Conner. But I think when they need a play, they're probably going to try to quick hit it with Chase Claypool. Juju Smith-Schuster, I'm not off on. You just like most weeks.
Timeout.
Yeah, he's in timeout. But I'm not completely down on him. But it's probably Chase Claypool and James Conner that I'm most comfortable with for the Steelers.
There is one thing we didn't talk about for Tennessee. Taylor Lewan, their best offensive lineman, I think it's the left tackle.
Yeah, ACL.
Tore his ACL out for the year. Not good when you're going up against
Bud Dupree in a really good pass rush. Yeah.
TJ Watt and this Pittsburgh D-line. So.
No, it's not.
So Pittsburgh, I actually I'm talking myself more into liking the Pittsburgh
spread
-2.5. Actually, yeah.
I think I do too.
And just ride the under if you want to bet over unders.
Yeah, I think I do too. I think I'm putting bets in early this week too because there's a lot of things here I like and I don't want them to change.
I wish I could do them from my computer, but I should probably bring my phone.
Yeah, my
Anyways.
computer goes weird with this stuff, so I can't. Seahawks Cardinals, 56.5 points on this one, too. Seahawks favored. Negative 184 on that money line. 3.5 points favorites for Seattle. This game figures to be, well, obviously high scoring. I think it lives up to that, too. I really do. I'm taking the over on a game. It's this one. And I do like the Seahawks money line, though. I don't think that Arizona's quite there yet to beat Russell Wilson at his own game, even at home.
I mean, it was a slow start against Dallas last night, which
Kyler Murray
led me to want to bet the under.
Kyler Murray as a passer didn't look great either.
He when he got comfortable, he got a little bit better. Seattle's defense is also bad.
Him and Hopkins weren't on the same page to start.
No. It was ugly. Either way, Seattle's defense is bad. They at times can see themselves getting down early and letting Russell Wilson, quote unquote, cook. Again, this one also has sneaky competitions for being highest scoring game of the week, which makes a lot of sense given this is tied for the highest over under of all these games this week. I don't think there's a fantasy relevant player I would not play.
I don't think there is either.
From this game.
Nope. Kenyon Drake would be the only one that you'd half question, and I think you're going with him. Even Christian Kirk this week could be a start.
Oh, God. Christian Kirk and Hopkins Fitz may even see some sneaky deep league value.
Yeah. Kirk and Hopkins, though, for sure. Definitely Kenyon Drake. Chase Edmonds, feel free to flex him in. He's more involved in the passing game.
Which they may need if Seattle does jump out early.
Probably will. And same thing for Seattle. You're going Chris Carson, both wide receivers, and Russell Wilson. That's obvious. So even Will Dissly, you're fine with at this point. So, yeah, that game is going to be really, really good, and this beer is really, really good, I must say. So, as a reminder, about halfway through here. Well, we're not halfway through. We're almost 3/4 of the way through it. I'm almost out of this beer. And it's a bomber. Elysium Pumpkino, coffee pumpkin ale. And it lives up to everything you'd expect. It's a little darker, but does not drink heavy. It's got a nice malty backbone to it. Pumpkin takes a backseat really to the pumpkin and coffee actually take a backseat to some of the baking spices that are used in this. So nutmeg and cinnamon, really, really very prevalent on this, not to a spicy point, but just to a point of where, they're there. It kind of tastes like fall. With the pumpkin and the maltiness and the coffee really bringing up the backbone here. So got very, very good balance between that baking spice, between the coffee and between the pumpkin. I don't know that one flavor is necessarily dominant. They complement each other very, very well. It's a really, really good fall drink that pulls it off without being overly heavy. So, usually you see pumpkin, you get it in stouts. You see coffee, you get it in stouts. But the ale and the lightness of that ale makes this very pleasing for me.
I'm going to jump into mine. I just finished my last sips. Again, for those still wondering, this is Goose Island's Christmas IPA. This is their malt forward, 6 hopped, kind of balanced IPA. I don't get the malt forward as much in terms of what I would think a traditional malt forward would be. I don't get much of the caramel on it. And it is, as they say, a bit juicier. Very fruity aromas, a lot of stone fruit, a little bit of tropicalness to it as well. The malt is kind of a complement to what the drink as a whole is. It's still an IPA, and you're still going to get that traditional juiciness from it, especially IPAs made nowadays. Very solid drink. I'll be interested to see if my store will get this. I'm assuming it will. But if you're looking for more, seasonal Christmas themed beers, this one may be worth a try, especially if you like Sierra Nevada's. I believe theirs is White Christmas.
Sure. All right, good stuff. Moving on to probably not as good as stuff. Jaguars Chargers. Chargers favored by a touchdown and a half here. Over unders 49. So
I mean, Jacksonville is completely just kind of derailed. James Robinson was saved by a touchdown last week on the team is just kind of just self-imploded.
Minshew didn't have a good game. Defense not great. And the Chargers are really getting a boost. They're getting Melvin Ingram back. They're getting another defensive lineman back. They're coming off the bye, and they're getting some of these defensive players specifically that were on IR back. So, while I don't necessarily like 2 touchdown spreads, I do think that the Chargers are going to win this football game. As far as fantasy relevant players go, this does go garbage time. Gardner Minshew is going to have to save his day. So he's got flex value again if you don't have a better option, especially with bye weeks happening this week. As far as other options, James Robinson, I don't know how much I like it given the fact that Chargers are getting, one of their starting D tackles back, plus one of their starting linebackers. As far as the wide receivers go, DJ Chark or Keelan Cole, I expect him to be playing from behind. Both are probably viable given the volume that they've seen. But again, I expect them both to be playing from behind. So, and Chargers have a good secondary too. So it's just not a good matchup for Jacksonville necessarily.
Yeah, hopefully Chark is a bit more healthy than he was this past week. Robinson, I think you play because really the pool of running backs at this point, it keeps getting smaller and smaller. It feels like, and at least he gets the snaps and the opportunity to get it. And you're just kind of hoping when you got last week and you get a touchdown. The more I look at it, the more I actually kind of like the Chargers spread. It is high. Rookie quarterback should be a relatively easy matchup for this team. I actually kind of like both running backs with the Chargers as flex options. Both Kelly and Justin Jackson both could see heavy play. I would definitely play Justin Jackson over Kelly, but this is that type of game script that could lead towards a heavy dosage of Kelly. So, then obviously you're not sitting Keenan Allen or Hunter Henry. Even Mike Williams could get some love here.
Yeah, Mike Williams could get some love here. You're not sitting Keenan Allen, as you mentioned. Justin Herbert has been a must-start since he took over the starting gig.
Much, yeah.
So, Justin Jackson, I think, is your answer at running back this week. He was last week. Joshua Kelly, outside of that one game, is kind of fallen off the wagon a bit. So I think that Justin Jackson has probably surpassed him. Eckler's still out, so that's about it for that game.
Yeah, this could be Justin Jackson's breakout right here. Talking about potential breakout performances, this could be Justin Jackson's.
Yep.
If he does,
Justin Jackson's been very good every time he's gotten an opportunity, though, for the most part. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe he's had one game. He just hasn't got a lot of chances.
Like Kenyon Drake in Miami all over again.
Yeah. Except he's got a better track record of actually being able to be, successful with.
I will not stand for your Kenyon Drake hate.
I'm with you, Nick, on this one now.
You're
Fuck
just
Kenyon Drake.
Fucking bitter.
I am pretty bitter, so.
Fucking bitter.
No, we're good. Fucking bitter.
Chiefs Broncos. Chiefs favored by 9.5. Negative 430 on the spread on the money line. Over under in this one's 48.5. Expect another big game from Brandon McManus in this one. I'll put him in my starting lineup this week. As far as the Chiefs go, I'm probably staying off of Le'Veon Bell again. I don't want to go out and rush that in there. You'll have to watch the status of Sammy Watkins. Either way, I don't necessarily want a secondary wide receiver option here for the Chiefs either. I don't think this game is going to be high scoring enough or close enough for the Chiefs to really have to get a secondary guy like Mecole Hardman or Demarcus Robinson or Sammy Watkins if he's back involved. We saw some flashes out of Robinson as we typically do, but I don't think that the game script here is enough to get anybody else involved. So it's chalk for the Chiefs. It's Mahomes, Edwards-Helaire, Kelsey, and Hill.
Yeah, I mean, you could get cute. You could get cute with Robinson. There's no fucking way I'm playing Mecole, but I'm there with you. I think Robinson's more of a deep play. Broncos wise, I'm okay with Drew Lock. This should, based on spread and I'm assuming point value here, even though it's at 48.5, that Lock should have some fantasy, should have some garbage time, potential garbage time. Philip Lindsay, I think he even has some value to him. Royce Freeman looked bad last week.
Melvin Gordon should be back.
Melvin Gordon.
Who's that with strep? He's not being disciplined.
That's right.
So.
It was strep.
Yeah.
Unless anything comes out about team suspension or anything like that,
they came out Sunday morning and said that they weren't going to punish him. So
I know. So by the way, yeah, you're playing Gordon. You're playing Tim Patrick, man. He's taking over that number one spot.
I fucking told everybody when Cortland Sutton went down that Tim Patrick was a guy you needed to run out and pick up because every freaking year for the last 3 years, Tim Patrick has found himself useful when there's a wide receiver injury.
The most disrespected receiver in football, Tim Patrick, the man with 2 first names who you normally shouldn't trust, but you should trust in fantasy.
Yeah, he is, and the overall portfolio doesn't look great, but anytime his number has gotten called, he's just produced. And he's come in and produced, and that's exactly what's happening here. Back-to-back 100-yard games. You are playing Tim Patrick this week. As far as Jerry Jeudy, I'm okay with that one. This is going to be a game where they have to throw. I'm okay with Melvin Gordon. And you mentioned Philip Lindsay. I can be okay with that one, too. Chiefs defense is not otherworldly. If Noah Fant is back, game script says Broncos are going to be down and they're going to be playing garbage time. So, I think that you can run your merry cast of Broncos out there because I don't think they're going to keep up with the Chiefs. But
we say that, and they kept up with New England. But New England, I guess if you looked a little bit deeper,
defense was very, very good against New England, though, and New England doesn't have the
They
weapons.
also didn't practice for 2 weeks, and if you looked at it a little bit deeper, Broncos money line made sense. Chiefs should cover this, but I feel like they've gone off on slow starts and have kept teams in it longer. This could be,
this game could go under.
This game could go. I think it'll go over. I think late scoring will push this game over.
Yeah.
You may go like Broncos spread at we'll go a bit deeper. Broncos spread in the first half.
Yeah. Hell, even Broncos spread in general, because we've seen it with garbage time before to where they could come within a touchdown at the end of the game, but it's so late it doesn't freaking matter,
Yep.
And definitely under that 10-point mark. So just something to keep an eye on there. 49ers, Patriots. Patriots favored by 2.5 here at home. I actually like the Niners.
Look good last week. I haven't heard any updates on his injury.
High ankle sprain, not expected to be serious.
I think I remember them saying he could miss a couple weeks. JaMycal Hasty looked good in his replacement.
Yep.
McKinnon kind of got benched, so to speak, for him.
Yep. It was at the end of the game. They were did have it. It was halftime. Right after halftime is when Mostert came out. But yeah, Hasty looked good in limited duty. Look, I like the Niners in this one. I like the money line for San Francisco.
I'm good with that. I think the point total is set fine. I wouldn't get too cute with it. I think 45 is rightfully set.
You mentioned JaMycal Hasty, though. He's out there on waivers. I think that you got to go grab him, and I think that you're plugging him in and starting him this week because I think he's going to get crack at it over McKinnon, and I think he's better suited for this game script than Jerick McKinnon is. I I think that other than that, you're going Deebo Samuel, revenge game for Jimmy Garoppolo. And you're going. I haven't used revenge game at all this year.
Revenge game, Jimmy G.
Yeah. So we'll see. You could paint the narrative that Belichick knows Jimmy G, but
I mean, is there if you're Belichick, what are you really drafting up on defense to stop? The pass or the run?
you're trying to stop the run because
You're trying to stop George Kittle and the running game. That's probably it.
Right.
Debo could have.
But then
a big
Debo's
game
going to
this week.
feast. Yeah.
Yep.
So keep an eye on that. You should get Gilmore, but Gilmore hasn't quite been his lockdown this year. So.
And Debo is also used in multitudes of ways. It's not like he's just a straight up, pass catching receiver. They'll find ways to get him to football.
Yes, they will.
And in space. So that's their thing.
Yes, they will. For the Patriots, bench Damian Harris this week. He came off a not much and a negative game script last week. I expect it's a negative game script again. And the thing with Cam Newton being back is that they're going to run Cam Newton. So I'm saying you bench Damian Harris. As much as that pains me. In this game, and the way I think this game script goes, it's a James White game.
Yeah. James White. I forgot it. That might be it.
That's it.
I think that might be it.
I think that's it. I think that I'm off of Cam Newton this week, too. I think James White is it because what we saw in San Francisco is one guy I'd totally forgotten about, and I didn't even realize was on the 49ers. That's on me. Jason Verrett, and how good he is when he's been healthy.
Yep, and they're getting healthy. They mentioned during the game Sunday night that they're getting back to secondary.
Emmanuel Mosley's back. Richard Sherman should be on his way here in a couple weeks. They're getting people back.
Yeah.
And they're getting the secondary back. And the D-line is good. Fred Warner is an absolute beast of a linebacker. Quan Alexander was out, but, that Niners defense is nothing to mess with, and I think the Patriots are going to struggle with that. Bucks Raiders. Bucks favored by just 3 at plus 100 odds. Holy shit. I like that, too.
Don't quite. I mean, it's we've seen so many different versions of the Bucs. Look great against the Packers. Look pretty bad against the Bears. I guess they started off slow. Looked better against the Chargers. The Panthers gave them a run for their money. I think they flat out beat them. They may have.
I gotta go back and look. I'll look
on the road. I suppose we can do. I don't get the warm and fuzzy feeling the same way. And they lost to the Saints week 1. They beat the shit out of the Panthers.
Yeah, they
never
destroyed Carolina. They beat Denver pretty handily. They beat the Chargers barely, but
that was their comeback.
That was the comeback. The Bears, they were tough again. Bears have an elite defense. Which is the only thing I can really say for that. They did struggle against the Saints in week 1, and lost that game, and then they just handed it to the Packers. So other than an elite defense in week 1 for a new quarterback on a new team without any preseason, learning a new offense for the first time in his career, they've been good, and they've margin of victory here.
Raiders have also played these upper echelon opponents tough. They went into Kansas City, beat them. No, the bye week could not have come at a worse time, in my opinion.
Yeah,
coming off of that big of a win, and then to go on a bye and then have to sit there and watch Tampa Bay beat the shit out of them.
It's by 10 in New Orleans. So they did get up for that game. I believe that was sans Michael Thomas. So different team.
At home. That was their first game at home.
Without Michael Thomas.
Yep.
They lost to the Patriots. They lost to the Bills. They did beat the Chiefs, which is kind of a hallmark victory there. But you know,
The Bills game was a bit close too.
it
Score
was.
may say otherwise, but they played the Bills tough too.
Yeah. So I don't know. I still like Tampa Bay. I think that they figured something out, and I think they figured something out with their defense last week too. Honestly, I really do. Now that being said, as much as I do like the Tampa Bay spread at plus 100 odds, far as fantasy goes, anybody you're off on the Bucks?
Besides their main piece, I'm not rushing out to play Gronk after this week.
No, I'm not either.
I think Brady, Jones, and then Godwin, Evans. There's Evans was hurt and he wasn't needed. They were up pretty much after the pick six. The game was pretty much in hand. So yeah, I'm not getting cute with Miller. Tyler Johnson continues to impress.
More of a dynasty pickup than anything.
I still think it's maybe even a redraft. Look, like it's one to look. Check out his snaps, routes run compared to Scotty Miller. Mike Evans can get healthy, and we've seen both Evans and Godwin's battle with health issues. Tyler Johnson's someone I think you need to put on your watch list for this year too.
This is the Minnesota guy.
Hyper dominant. Just the kid made some poor decisions when it came to the draft. That's all.
He did. He absolutely did, and probably for a reason. But anyway, as far as the Raiders go, you don't get cute with that. It's Jacobs and Waller. Renfro, you could probably make an argument for, honestly. I think you could. I have to start Nelson Aguilar in a dynasty league.
I mean, hell, you can make it. Yeah, I mean, like you can make, a case to even play Ruggs if you believe Tampa Bay's going to get up.
Yeah, I could. I could also go smash my fingers between an end table and a door.
I'm just saying the man went off last. The man, 2 big bombs and a touchdown. We talk about Deshaun Jackson. You can't hate Ruggs.
I can hate Ruggs.
Like Deshaun Jackson.
Deshaun Jackson's been doing it for years. Henry Ruggs did it for 1 game.
Yeah. Henry Ruggs is also younger, faster, and got 10.5-inch hands.
3 targets, 2 receptions for 118 yards. Get out of here.
I love it.
Bears Rams.
Oh, man.
Bears 5.5-point underdogs.
We're going to see, which is funny because I obviously me, living in Illinois, a lot of Bears fans here. A lot of conversations. I used to say that the Bears are the biggest frauds. The Bears are the least frauds. They are the most predictable team. Their defense will hold your offense for the most part to under 20 points. All the offense has to do, which has been difficult at times, is to score more than 20 fucking points. Yeah. Nick Foles is better for this team because when they need him the most, he makes more plays than what Trubisky. Trubisky's more talented, but not mentally, just more talented physically. But Foles can make the throws. He doesn't fall under pressure. This defense is back to 2018 form. They're getting turnovers. They're getting pressure. They're healthy. And they have a quarterback that's a bit more aggressive and doesn't make quite as much mistakes.
Do you like the under here?
The last time they played, which was in 2018, the game, not only did the Bears single-handedly destroyed the Rams, the game, I believe, was under. I think it was a low-scoring game in general. 45.5. It's pretty much average. I don't quite know who the Rams are. I didn't also realize all 4 of their wins came against the NFC East.
Yeah. The other thing here is Bears money line or Bears spread?
Bears money line.
Money line at plus 215.
If you're going to bet, you can get cute. I'm going big here. I'm not going with the touchdown, getting a touchdown pretty much. Only losing to a touchdown spread. I think the Bears can go into LA and beat them.
I agree.
I do. They did it 2 years ago. If you think the Bears are going to win, you bet the under. Rams have looked, the last 2 weeks have looked a bit just
Pedestrian.
It's the perfect term. Woods has honestly been the only, like, the Cup and Goff are not on the same page. I don't know why. Like, that was Goff's first safety blanket, was Cooper Kupp. I don't know what changed from there, but again, with the way that the Steelers are using Chase Claypool now, the Rams are always manufacturing ways to put the ball in Robert Woods' hands. So I think it's Woods, and I mean, you're still going to play Kupp.
Yeah, you're still going to play Kupp. Kupp, like I said, it was an uncharacteristic game. It's not that like they didn't try to get him involved. Him and Goff just weren't on the same page.
And the Rams should have won that game. I mean, all hats off to the Niners. The Rams shot themselves in the foot with multiple misses. The deep shot to Kupp.
Cooper Kupp missed 2 touchdowns.
Cooper Kupp had that drop in the end zone. I think it was at the end of the first half.
There were a couple other bad misses early too,
and then the bad interception in the end zone.
Yeah,
like, I mean, the Rams should have beat the Niners, especially after their injuries, and they and a hobbled Jimmy G.
Yep.
I'm still thinking, Bears money line, maybe the under. The Bears are pretty easy though. Montgomery and Robinson. Maybe Jimmy Graham, if you want to get cute again.
End zone targets.
I don't
think
it
was Cole Kmet last week.
Yeah, I mean, it should have been Jimmy G. I don't know if the target volume is going to be there this week, so I don't know if it ever is.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, that's our show.
That's the show.
Thank you guys for tuning in. We will be back on Sunday. Beerfield FF on Twitter, Beerfield Fantasy Football on YouTube, at Hot BFF, at 3BFF. We'll see you guys on Sunday morning.
Yeah.